This time on Rad Rat Video, we talk about, is it possible to kickflip anything that you could ollie? What about the Lyon 25? Could anyone kickflip that? Welcome back to Rad Rat Video, a channel all about skateboarding. I like to review skateboarding stuff. I like to answer your questions. I like to play skateboarding games. I like to do anything that I can that is related to skateboarding. The first question in this series is from the William Shakespeare from the grave. He wrote this, and it was just discovered. I think that must be the case. He has two questions. Question one, how much do you have to change things up to know that the setup that you're using is the best for you? Or if you're always happy with the same setup you've always used, should you just stick with it? Should you ever change or always change? So like going an eighth or a quarter inch up or down when you need a new deck. To me, I like to switch things up all the time. The only thing that doesn't change as much is the width, because you need the board and the trucks, So if they're both bad at the same time, I'll switch them both out. But yeah, getting different types of stuff, the hardness and the sizes and the height, like your truck height and all that type of thing, different kinds of grip tape and all that. I like to just pick out new stuff and try it just to see. In fact, if I buy a board, I buy it based on the width only. Like how is a concave? Is it super concave and really steep kicks? Is it more of a flat type of style? I don't know, and I don't care. There is a big difference. You have a super steep board. Trying to do tech stuff on a really steep board is hard. You can get a ton of pop, but like the board is just tougher to control in a really technical way. So like there is a difference, but I just buy stuff just to try it. So, if you find something that's perfect and it's the best board you've ever had, I'm not going to tell you to not buy it ever again, but my preference is to just try new things. Question two, you've mentioned not being afraid of trying a different setup before based on what was available to try. Yeah, I have been known to do that. What skateboard component has made the most significant difference? For me, I tried half-decent trucks from a proper brand instead of dirt cheap ones, and it was worlds better. And going from 99A wheels to 85A, I saved my knees on these rough British pavements. Yes, the wheel hardness is going to be a pretty big difference. I wish I knew that back in the day. I was skating on my driveway, which was really rough and really soft and kind of sticky and gross. And I was skating really hard wheels, and it was not a good match. So yeah, something like that is a pretty big thing. But I said the deck width because the way you set up your feet for tricks can change. If your board is super thin, and then you suddenly have an extra inch, like, do you adjust your feet to be as close to the edge as they were, or like keep it percentage wise? It can change how you do your tricks. And if the board is extra wide, the trucks are extra wide, that's a lot of extra weight too. So there's some difference in it that way. Are you trying to just pop really high on flat and do a bunch of flip tricks? Are you trying to have control in a park with speed and trying to blast over stuff? That's going to have a big difference on that. And then the size of your trucks, like your truck height, I think that's a pretty big difference. If you go from highs to lows within the same brand, because like a low on one brand might be a mid in another brand. It's complicated. I've looked into this. There's no like standardized conversion factor for what means low and stuff like that. But if you go from a really low truck and you're on like 52s and you go to a high truck with 56s, that's going to feel a lot different with all else being the same. So yeah, don't be afraid to try new weird things, and don't be afraid to stick to something. I don't know. I haven't really done that. I stick to something for a while, but I'm always changing. All right, next question is from Augustin, who says, "Do 540 impossibles exist?" I believe so. It is complicated because if you ever think about it, like in a very technical description, you ever look up what an impossible is, people will say it's a backflip with your back foot. the board doesn't necessarily have to do a backflip as an impossible. People expect it to, and if you ever do a backflip on your board, people will tell you, hey, nice impossible. I actually did that, posted on Instagram. People were like, hey, that's a good impossible. I did not touch my back foot at all after I popped it. But a normal, a realistic impossible that people actually do, that's not in a textbook, it might start that way, but it usually ends being more flat. And if it's more flat, you could do a bit of an extra one. Now at 540, the board isn't upright. You couldn't really land it that way, but you could pull up that toe and tip it back over. So you could do a half impossible. You pop it, it starts to come around, and then you just use your toe to tip it back up. It would look like a really weird pop shove, like it just kind of starts to wrap and then you pull it. But yeah, if you do a 540 impossible, you just got to do that extra little ankle action, and then you could land it. I have seen that trick before. I don't know of any clips that I could pull for it, but I know I saw them as GIFs back in the day when we were posting on the forums and things like that. All right, the next question is from Chinchilla, who says, would you be keen on doing collaborations with other YouTubers? That's the first part of the question. Maybe. I'm not opposed to it. It's just like a timing and scheduling thing. My work is in waves. Like I'll be working until, late at night all week. The next week I'll have like a normal amount, and then that'll stay for a while, and then I'll have a whole month where I have like nothing. And so like if somebody wanted to do something and it happened to be a slow time at work, it's possible, but I can't really plan stuff in advance because I don't know when I'm going to be free to do stuff. Like I try to film these in blocks and have a few, because who knows what's going to happen to me next week. I might get 3 big projects in. So I'm not opposed to it. It's not something I've been seeking out, though. Thinking of Mr. Beast, what would you do with your channel if you had $1 million to spend? A lot. I would hire a team, people who would look stuff up for me, like try to get all the data on stuff and compile it together. I would get people who can turn that into a script. Of course, I would go through it in the end and clean up anything that I thought had to be, and make sure everything was factually accurate and all that, and try to do it in my style so it doesn't seem weird. But yeah, someone who could look up a bunch of stuff, find all the history of something, and turn it into an interesting script, that would be amazing. And then I could film it, send it off to somebody who can cut it all and get the final clip and make a thumbnail for me. Like if I could outsource a lot of that stuff, I could do this a lot. I could be putting out like serious documentary style stuff all the time, and I would love to do that. It takes $1 million though, right? Like I was trying to find someone who could just do captions, because I was trying to have it. I had learned that people are if you could find my channel in different countries, that would be a great thing. So if I could do like actual hand translated stuff in Spanish and German and stuff like that, that would help with my reach and people would find me more. But it costs more to hire someone to do that than the video makes. And like, I can't pay someone $5 to do it, because that's not fair. But if the video makes $10, I can't really afford to give you any more, right? So that's, it's just kind of a dream at this point. Something else I would like to do is big giveaways all the time. I think that would be fun. So, give out boards, give out tickets to Street League, fly people out to stuff. If I play a game on the channel and I like it, give out free codes or, things like that. I think that would definitely be cool. If the channel was bringing in the kind of cash it takes to do that kind of stuff, I would like to do that, because it's a good way to have people come back, and that would be cool. If I ever find $1 million on the floor, well, I'd have to find about 10, because I would want to invest and like get a good retirement account going, Last question is from Ref Jowley, which is just An A+ name. Fantastic. I love it. The question is, in 2016, we saw Jaws land an ollie down the Lyon 25. It looks like this really took everything he had to do it. And if it didn't, it seems like there isn't much more anyone could do down that gap. So my question is, do you think it's physically possible for anyone to ever top this feat? What do you think is the most realistic trick other than just a regular ollie that can be landed down that insane gap? Is it a kickflip, pop shove it, bean plant, a 180? Will mankind ever produce another human being willing to sacrifice themselves for us to ever find out? Or do you subscribe to the theory that any gap that can be ollied can also be tray bombed? Well, any gap that can be ollied can also be tray bombed. I mean, I think that's technically true, but not really. You know, like if you could ollie something in bail, you know, like that tells you that there's difficulty to it. Just trying to land a big drop with just an ollie, your balance has to be just right, your weight has to be just right, the board has to be perfectly straight. You can't land too hard on one side, and like, you know, you can't break your board because you landed with too much weight on the tail. You have to land bolts, and you got to be centered, and you know, there's a lot. You have to do the trick perfectly. If it's hard to do an ollie, doing a 360 flip would be almost impossible. But that just means you need more attempts, right? But there is an issue with that. So I made a video about bone-breaking drops, which is one of my favorites on this channel that I did. And I went into some serious detail going into calculating exactly how much force your legs can take before you injure them. And the way that they calculated this, the best thing that I could possibly find on this topic was if you put a cadaver in a car, and they did this, and they crashed the car. Bunch of different dead bodies, crash them into cars. They look at their legs afterward to see how damaged they got, and they were able to make this chart of like how likely you are to get hurt at a certain force. And there's an age, I think 25 was like the peak of how much impact you can take, and it's a little bit less below that, and it drops off, you know, after that. So 25 is the best that you could do as far as your own body, unless you get crazy into fitness at 26, you know, but like on average. And so the numbers for that, you can again watch that. I go into a lot of detail, show you all the math. But you have about a 40% chance of an injury at 9.2 kilonewtons. So for a 165-pound man, he can fall 6.5 meters and absorb the last 0.5. So he's going to fall 6 and then absorb the last part. So that counts as part of the fall, but that doesn't count as the drop, you know, if that makes sense. So he starts here, he lands here, but he absorbs some. So that's a 6-meter drop. In freedom units, that is 19 feet and 8 inches. And the Lyon 25 comes in at 14.5 feet. So that theoretically means that you could do a gap that's 5 feet higher, another 8 or 9 stairs. But it doesn't exactly work that way, because the cadavers, when you're crashing them in cars, they're not reacting. They're not trying to land it. They're just objects at that point. If you're trying to jump off of something on your skateboard and actually land, there's tension because you're trying to absorb the impact and you're trying to hold it in. That's why if you get in a car crash, you're supposed to go loose, because the extra muscle tension that you've built up adds to the amount of force that's on those bones. I can't imagine being able to just relax when I know I'm about to crash, but that is what you're supposed to do, and that's why. So I had to recalculate all that stuff again. This is all in the video for specifics. So the preload on your tendon is about 2,000 newtons, and it says that it decreased the external force needed to affect an injury. So you actually get to reduce the amount that it takes to injure you by 2,000. So all of that works out. When you figure all that out, you recalculate it all, that means the new number is 5.1 meters, with half of a meter being absorbed, down to about 4.6 meters. That's 15 feet 1 inch. Add in the height of the ollie, and the Lyon 25 is actually above that number. So your average 25-year-old person jumping down a drop that big has a 40% chance of being hurt. And I could have picked 50, but 40 is like you might be able to get 2 tries. So like Jaws was able to do a bunch of attempts and actually land the trick. And I think he is a bit of a mutant. Like, I think he's above the normal amount of impact that someone can take. So the question isn't like, what can somebody do down it? It's what could Jaws have done down it when he was 25? Could he have done a kickflip on it? Maybe. If his kickflips were just spot on, he was always catching them perfectly, bolts, he could always land it exactly there, and the difficulty of landing the drop was the hard part, then that could be theoretically possible. But we have to get another Jaws to try that. And something that I didn't talk about when I originally did all the calculations is the bails, because when you land, you don't absorb much of your speed. You do land some, and I just kind of canceled that out. You start with speed, you land with speed, you're absorbing the drop, you're not absorbing speed. But if you land in bail, you do absorb that speed. So you kind of hit the ground and you fall and you catch, but if you kind of landed sideways and just landed at a dead stop, that'd be much worse. You do a lot more force because you're absorbing all of your speed. It's as if you got all that speed going and then like hit the wall. You're adding that onto the drop. So like the bails can do more damage than a land. It's complicated. But for anyone to do anything else down that set, to me, I would be shocked. It seems so unlikely that it was just ollied. So yeah, that is it for now. If you have any questions of your own, go to radratvideo.com, submit them there on the homepage like these people did. If you like the video, you can hit the like button, which helps me out on YouTube, get some more people to watch these, as the channel's been kind of circling the drain for a bit, and I don't want to stop doing it. So if you could help me out that way, I would appreciate it. You can tell some of your friends about this one. You can hit the join button, which helps me out as well, and you could sponsor me on Patreon. But that is it for now. I will see you next time. Thanks for hanging out.